It's been gloomy for a long time, so when you get these these nice spring days, it sure is beautiful and welcome. Howdy. Well, I'm sure you can all relate to the weather here. I'm pleased as punch that we have these sunny days for the next few days. It's going to start raining again next week, but it's so nice to be out and about. I'm going to finish editing the video I made yesterday. I just wanted to reiterate the kind of point of it all. And you know, in all of these books on dark psychology and public relations and propaganda, going back to the beginning of the 20th century, so much good work. One of the key factors is always fear mongering, right? You have to be afraid of something. Some people are saying that Trump is preparing to use tactical nukes against Iran. I don't think anybody wants to do that, but it's on the table. You know, the thing in the Middle East is so weird, but it's really important to a lot of people in the States that Israel does what it wants to do. The fear-mongering is horrific, and the conversation that's happening all the time, decade after decade, doesn't seem to educate people well enough for us to organize and demand some reforms. I think the United States, you know, as much as I know about it, the system of government, the checks and balances, the Constitution, the Supreme Court, all these institutions, is pretty amazing, actually. It's a pretty brilliant and beautiful thing. And if it were reformed just a little bit and governed properly, it could be such an incredible force of good in the world. And you know, I do have to admit I'm disappointed that things are so chaotic and weird right now with the current administration, and it just is obvious to me that these people are stupid. And it seems like we're all dumbing down more and more, which is really tragic. But, you know, it's always been kind of like this. Our nation's history, the United States of America's history, it's never been too pretty. You know, I'm reading this book about the education system in the States, higher education in the 60s. It's fascinating. But I have read Howard Zinn and Noam Chomsky and Robert Scheer and a lot of these people, Hayden and so on. And I've read a lot of history about that time because I'm interested in the Vietnam War, the politics of escalation and all that kind of thing. And we're right back at it, you know, today. You know, it's just so crazy that we never can get out of it. And so the point I want to make right now is that it really is, or it seems to be, the only way that certain kinds of people, I don't know if they're pathological, I don't know if they're sociopaths, or each individual in government is dark triad or tetrad. I hope not. But it just seems like the people in charge are crazy, you know? And it's sad that normal people, common folks, are so pacified and domesticated and clueless. The world's complicated, but it's not that complicated. Anyone can figure out how things work if they want to, if they're encouraged to, inspired to, and so on. It would be such a horror story to see the higher educational system in the United States corrupted further than it's already been. And the politics within educational system is so unfortunate because it's not productive at all. So what am I saying? Basically, the same tactics that they always use, people in power, just to maintain their careers. I think simply it's just careerism and this learned desire to have the status and the attention. I mean, we're all attention seekers, even people on YouTube who are trying to get some attention, sharing our opinions. We have zero power, but we think we're cool because, like Sam Cedar talks about politics for decades, and Cenk Uygur and people like that on the left or central or the right-wing people, and nothing ever happens, right? They get a lot of attention, they run their shows, they talk, and it just seems to get worse. So now in Europe and in the States, they're just ramping up the fear-mongering, the Russophobia and Chinophobia and fear of immigration and all that stuff. And it's unfortunate because that stuff doesn't really matter that much. I'm not saying that Putin was justified in invading Ukraine. I'm just saying they had their reasons, and some of those reasons stemmed from the actions and activity of the United States and NATO. So, there's responsibility all around. It's a terrible tragedy, and it breaks my heart, but and what's going on in the Middle East is horrific, but it's not something we could not have predicted had we thought about it a little bit. And we're all being trained now, literally trained, to get on board with whatever mayhem and craziness the people in charge are going to perpetrate to keep relevant, to keep their jobs, and to keep us distracted and divided and confused. And I think Europe is engaged in a lot of saber rattling right now. I don't see how they can accomplish what they say they want to do. I just don't think it's very realistic, and lots of people who really know what they're talking about think that as well, but who am I? I mean, it's just my opinion based on the information that I've digested. But, it's a lot of talk, rhetoric, and probably won't amount to a nuclear war or tactical nukes in Iran and so on. We'll probably skate another 4, 8, 12 years. But what's coming down the pike on top of that, all the layers of the polycrisis and the problem that we have with our socioeconomic religion, that's not going to go away. That's the elephant in the room. And if we can't reform or sort that out, we have no chance whatsoever. Like I said yesterday, it's policy now for climate denial. I don't know how you deny climate, because climate is climate. We all know about climate. You can't deny it. But global heating, right? Anthropogenic global heating is denied. Official policy, that's all silly. I mean, we should keep the oil in the ground in the United States for strategic reasons, invest oil and gas in creating a new kind of infrastructure that gives us more time to develop potential solutions to have a softer landing than we're headed for now. Some people just can't see a softer landing in the future. They just can't imagine that we would get there. But you want to hold out hope and imagine that maybe we could do that. But there's nothing happening today that would make me think that anybody cares about this stuff. So that's the problem. I don't want you to get caught up in the fear stuff, and I want you to really consider kicking out every politician in Europe and the United States that's working right now, and figuring out what kind of people you want to lead your country. If you have any agency whatsoever, if there's any democracy in the world, so-called, some form of democracy, if voting matters, But it seems like it's a lock, the billionaires and the corporatists, the international corporatists and tech billionaires and so on, they've got a lock on it, and they're going to they're just so much more sophisticated at creating consent, right? At just getting us distracted and confused and doing what they want to do. It's not conspiratorial, it's just par for the course. They have access to service providers that can help them with propaganda and public relations and advertising and marketing. And they have their channels of communication that they can use that insiders take for granted and believe in, and plebs and proles don't really get, but it's enough snippets of information on the YouTubes and the TV, cable TV, to keep people thinking they know what the hell's going on. And then everybody just holds on tight for dear life and prays that they can get by another year and try. Planning ahead is difficult. When I was young, I could do that. The mortgages and the car loans and the things that I was doing. And very early on, I decided I wasn't going to have any debt, period. So if that meant that I rode a bicycle around town, then I rode a bicycle around town. I just realized after buying one car with a loan that, I was paying way too much for the financing and I didn't like it. And, the first house I bought with well, it was financed by the seller who I knew. I knew the person who sold it to me, and he financed it for me. So I was able to pay him off. And it was prime real estate in San Francisco. And, after a while, you kind of get accustomed to doing things that way, and you can live with less and be totally happy. But people are going to be stuck in this rentier economy, and it is a kind of cloud capital serfdom, or feudalism or something. I want you to think about it, and I want you to not be scared, but if you want to educate yourself, do that, and then figure out how you can organize some people in your neighborhood to push back. They did these teach-ins in the 60s. And that was a thing for a while, was trying to raise awareness about the Vietnam War and so on. And after a while, it just petered out. Sometimes you just can't teach people anything. People don't want to learn, they don't want to know, or it gets shut down by the powers that be. They make sure that it gets sabotaged and soured and wrecked. And it's worse now than it ever has been, unfortunately. It really is. So heads up, people. All hands on deck. It's going to be really hard from now on to figure out what's what. And you're going to have to level up your thinking, critical thinking skills, and your sense and passion for reality. And when I talk about reality, I mean biophysical, psychological, neuroscience, physics, energy, things like that, empirical reality, and get with it. Anyway, why am I talking about this? I have no idea. It's such a beautiful day. I'm going to go ride my bike. Take good care. Bully MT. Out. And the Bully MT, that's my nickname, okay? It's a long story, but I have made videos about it. Take care. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.